A reminder to everyone who is here, this meeting is being recorded, digitally recorded, so please be respectful of each other, both when you're speaking and also when you're listening to other people speak. Is there anyone here for open session? Francois?
Councillor Steiger, 65 Hillville Road here in Hubbardston, and also a member of the planning board. I respectfully ask the chair if at some point in time we may receive an update on the matter of 248 Gardner Road. And I'm sure that you may have already some updates that some of which can be prepared and presented to the public at large. Others you may not be able to do at this point in time, but I would greatly appreciate that this be added as an agenda item in the near future. The reason I'm asking that is I know that this, as a planning board member about 4 years ago, this was presented originally. I understand the situation still remains, and I'm very curious myself as a resident, and more importantly as part of the planning board, to understand how things are moving in that on that lot.
Sure.
Thank you.
Something we could do in the next meeting, or?
Yeah, I'll talk to Francois.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else for open session? All right, for announcements, Katie?
Yes, we have a whole bunch of good things coming up. So first up, this weekend, we have 2 events. We have the seniors are doing a luncheon next door. It's a fundraiser to help raise money for the deck. It is on Sunday, February 11th from 12 to 2, and there is about 10 tickets left. They're asking for a $20 donation, and I do it that way on purpose, for the tickets. It's going to be catered by Stars and Stripes, so it's like super towny event. They usually have really, really good food over there, and I know Wanda down at the diner, it will make really, really good food. The Girl Scouts are helping cater it, and they also have a raffle going on at the, you can get anytime, and it's a raffle for a bunch of gift cards, correct? Like a raffle tree. Okay, and so the raffle is $5 for 10 tickets and $10 for 25 tickets. I bought a ticket because there's a lot of money over there. You guys should all go over there and get a raffle. I'm telling you, there's gift cards to like all the local restaurants. There's gift cards to big places like Home Depot and stuff like that. But there's a lot of gift cards over there, and it's definitely worth, you know, $5, $10. But all the money goes back to the deck build that they are building. So it's all good cause. The luncheon again is this Sunday, February 11th, and you can get tickets. There's only 10 left, and they're only available for tonight and tomorrow because then they have to get the head count in. So, if you want to come, come spend a lovely Sunday down at the Senior Center for a lovely lunch and have the Girl Scouts serve you, please buy a ticket. All right. They're also on. There is a roast beef dinner coming up on. That's not this weekend. I'm sorry. That's next weekend. On the following weekend for the Hubbardston Scholarship Committee on February 17th from 5 to 8. This money goes back to the Hubbardston Scholarship Committee. We give away $3,000 to $4,000 scholarships to deserving folks that are residents for Hubbardston. It is at the Rod and Gun. We are doing our lovely roast beef dinner. We're back to the roast beef where we stopped with the tour of Italy. So it's roast beef, mashed potatoes, green beans, all the fixings, salad, the whole 9 yards dessert. It's $15 for adult and $8 for kids 8 and under. And again, February 17th, 5 to 8, you can pre-buy tickets from people like me. You can go next door and see Paul and Flo. They have tickets. Paula Stash-Kalis has tickets. Phone numbers are on Facebook and on the flyers and stuff like that for the events if you want to call directly somebody and have them get you a ticket. But please come on down. Again, that's February 17th from 5 to 8. There's a ice fishing derby coming up on February 24th. Hopefully we still have ice by then. From 7 to 2, and is being put on by the Rod and Gun. It's a $20 entry fee for adults, and kids 12 and under are $10. You register at the Rod and Gun. The actual ice fishing derby will be on Ben's Pond or Sawyer's Pond, depending on who you ask what it's called. But down on that pond down by Rieta Ranch, they have all the prizes and stuff. There's going to be lunch served, all kinds of stuff, or dinner or something like that. You can see all the information on the Rod and Gun Facebook, and at the Rod and Gun they have all the information of prizes being won. But that's usually very well attended as long as we have ice. That pond is packed when you drive by that day. Dates to keep in your mind is Keep Hubbardston Beautiful is coming up on April 20th from 8 to noon, and the Hubbardston Fair is coming up on June 8th from 9 to 2, the rain date of the 9th. Both of those, the Hubbardston Fair I am taking vendors for, and I do wanna put out there to anyone that wants to hear it, there are a lot of scholarships coming up. The library has one, the Country Hen Select Board has another, the Hubbardston Scholarship Committee has like 3 we give away, the Lions usually give away one, and these things, a lot of the kids for some reason just apparently don't really wanna apply. So I'm putting it out there now, so that way people hear it and we'll get more applications, in theory. Alright, that's what I got.
So, thank you. Mike, you wanna grab a chair and you can pull it over?
If he
Take
wants
one
to
of these.
stand right there.
Thank you.
Wait a second.
There's some in the corner,
One more chair.
Grab that one.
Watch.
I always get sent to the corner.
or there's a wheelie chair. You get the rolly chair, fancy.
Okay, we're going to be moving to the Legislative Priorities Forum. And we're pleased to have our representative and senator from the State House. They were able to give her their time to be here tonight. For you folks to ask questions, let them know what you would like to see done and so forth. Please make your questions a priority type thing, et cetera. Be respectful of their time here tonight. They're not here for the entire night, and we do have other things to do too. But everyone will get a chance if you have questions. And with that in mind, I would like to welcome State Representative Donnie Berthium and State Senator Peter Durant, and I'll turn it over to you, and the floor is open for questions, et cetera.
So we're here for questions, so why don't we get right into it, because it looks like there's a lot of you here, and I understand that some of them I don't wanna ask questions, so who wants to go first?
So for the good of the order, anyone online, please raise their hand or put their question in the chat box, and it'll be read by me. Ed, I do see your hand. We're going to take a person here in person first, then we will go to you next. Thank you.
Is it okay if I read a 2-minute presentation?
Can we ask you to state your name also,
Yeah,
please, and your address?
part of my
Thank you.
presentation. All right. My name is Susan Meager. I am the president of Asnacomet Pond Association, Comet Pond. And I and the other association members recently attended the Quabbin Watershed Advisory Committee meeting that was held 12/18/23, and then the Ware Watershed Advisory Committee that was held 1/11/24, where Senator Durant was actually president of both of those. Our concerns are that over the years, and especially with the onset of COVID, that the use of Comet Pond by the fishermen, the party boaters, the kayakers, the boarders, and now the long-distance swimmers has increased dramatically to the point of potentially overcrowding, which leads us to the concern for safety, particularly for the swimmers, the water quality of the lake, and the invasive plant milfoil, which was brought in approximately 6 years ago by one of the visitors' boats to the lake. The long-distance swimming has only very recently been allowed at Comet by the DCR, though it was already happening for the past several years. The association is divided about whether or not it should be allowed, but we have advocated very hard to make sure that the access for the swimmers is taking place at the public beach and not down at the south end. Our major concern is that the milfoil has already spread from one end of the lake to the other. This is gonna be a battle that we, the homeowners, will be literally paying for generations to come. The DCR has been generous. They have put in $20,000 for a survey of the entire lake, and they have helped match funds with us for the removal of the milfoil, but this is not gonna continue indefinitely. This is gonna end up costing us tens of thousands of dollars over the upcoming years. Visitors to the pond are the ones that brought in the milfoil, and therefore they were part of the problem, but not part of the solution as of yet. The question is, what can be done to ensure that they are? And on behalf of the association, we ask that anything that you can do in your power to help us preserve this beautiful resource, that is Comet Pond, which has long been known as one of the most pristine water bodies in Massachusetts as well as, all of New England. We can't stand to just see it be harmed, and we thank you for any help or advocacy that you can do in supporting us at the association. So not really a question, except that, we're gonna be looking at this milfoil problem, the issue about the long-distance swimmers, and are they bringing far more people onto the lake that hasn't gotten any bigger, over the decades, and generations that many of our, people have been living at that lake, so.
Yeah, so I've been learning a lot about it.
You
as-
have-
as
you have,
know,
Senator.
I've attended a couple of meetings
Yes.
where this has come up, and I think from my standpoint, to me, the biggest issue that concerns me is safety.
Mhm.
If you have swimmers out there and you have boats going around, it's only a matter of time before,
Yeah.
there's an accident that goes on, so I think that's something that needs to be taken, at least looked at. And I think we spoke at the Rutland meeting, about using perhaps other waterways that may actually
Yes.
work, for this purpose as well.
Exactly.
There's obviously both sides of this situation, and some of the long distance swimmers came by and they certainly are advocating for their use as well, but, it's something I think we need to work with DCR on. The milfoil issue is of concern, because, you know, we're seeing that those invasive species start to move around.
Yes.
But, you know, then the problem is barring washdowns and lockouts of your boat like you do on Quabbin.
Right.
You know, you're gonna end up with some instance of that, but.
Yes.
But I guess I'm just saying that I'm sympathetic to that, and from my standpoint, I am concerned about the safety of the swimmers there. It's something we might look at.
Has there ever been accidents there with swimmers in
No.
boats before? No, not
No.
yet, no.
No.
Yeah.
So my name is Cindy Schlenner, and I'm the Hubbardston representative for the Ware River Watershed Advisory Committee. And I was quite vocal about advocating for access for long-distance swimmers. People have been swimming from the boat ramp on Comet Pond for a long time. So it's nothing new, and actually no one has been hurt. So I wanted to find out what it sounds like there's a couple of concerns that you have. One is bringing more people in, and I don't think you have to worry about that, cause a lot of people I know they think I do long distance swimming, and that's not even, long distance swimming compared to most of the long distance swimmers. So I don't think that's a big issue, especially because DCR also has control of that land. So if you're thinking of competitions of that, I cannot see DCR ever giving a permit for something like that. As far as safety, speaking from someone who's been swimming at Queen Lake in Phillipston, one of the reasons Comet Pond is really nice is the lack of motorboats. And so, one of the things that long distance swimmers use are swimming buoys, which are reflective and they sort of drag behind you. And they're fluorescent orange. And that's something that could be advised, and in fact, I didn't even know about them, swimming buoys, but a lot of the long distance swimmers use them. And I'll start using it this year. But, so I don't think, I'm not quite sure safety is a big issue, especially because swimmers do have that buoy to grab onto. But I can understand your concern about Comet Pond getting crowded. And, because the parking lot has, I think you're seeing a lot more kayakers.
And
A
borders.
lot of
Yep.
people are coming out. So, is there, I was not available to go to the previous meeting because I was getting my knee replaced, but, I will be there the next time, and that's something you all should attend, is the Ware River Watershed Advisory Committee, and, in fact, I can put an agenda item on for the next meeting. I'll talk to our chairperson, Jeff, about the long distance swimming.
believe they made that an agenda item for the next meeting.
Oh, this
It's gonna be
coming
February
okay.
29th, yes, correct.
Okay,
And there
Yes.
there was a lot of heated discussion over that, you know, at
Yeah.
those meetings I went to 3 of them, I think, in Rutland over the last year or so. And,
Yeah.
that was one of the big one was the size of the motors on Long Pond, that was a big thing.
yes, that's, and the
And,
number of registrations you can
Yeah,
have on
and
Long
then
Pond, yeah.
the long distance swimmer, and then the closing
Yeah.
of the trails, so I mean,
The roads, yeah.
the final thing, they rectified some of that, but, and I know the long distance swimming is certainly better in the end than what they had originally proposed. I think it was they wanted to do away with it completely, if I remember correctly.
Liability, they did not want long distance swimmers leaving the water, entering the water from DCR
Yeah,
property,
right,
so we were
because then
very lucky.
They were on the hook for it, so.
Yeah, and in fact, before COVID, Dan Clark had agreed that we could start swimming from somewhere by the dam. And it was during COVID and, you know,
And poor
the
Dan
Mickey's-
Clark, a lot of us yelled at him at those meetings.
Oh,
so,
I
he was-
apologize to
He was
Dan
very,
Clark
yeah, I did
every-
too after, but he was very good, so.
yeah, yeah. But that's definitely a big, that's the venue to discuss it. I do wanna comment on, I saw something about the Moose Horn and Brigham. I checked out Moose Horn because I was thinking, gee, another place to swim. I personally would not swim there. I went down the access road and there's barely any parking. But as a woman swimming by myself, I wouldn't get out there and swim because it's very isolated, the location on the pond. So I would be really concerned for that. Brigham would be nice, except Hubbardston would have to put a beach in so that we wouldn't sink into deep mud. So I don't think that's.
The muck,
Yeah, the muck.
the muck.
Thank you, Mr. Blanchard, and then we have someone in the house, and then Frank Boudreau, no relation.
He still moved. Did you mute him?
Yes, thank you very much. Greatly appreciate seeing Senator Durant and hard copy of some questions that I have regarding DCR and how they would implement the long distance swimming and how they would enforce that. Also have given you an analysis of Moosehorn, Brigham, and Long Pond as great alternatives to Comet Pond. Now, I'm the first one to admit that Comet Pond has pristine water, but all of the other Long Pond, Brigham, and Moosehorn have great water to swim on, and long distance swimming would be welcome there. Why I would rather see it in those locations than Comet Pond is basically a safety issue. I've lived on the pond since 1982, and I'm very familiar with the amount of boat traffic there. And my concern is for the fishermen and the boaters that have had the ability to use the pond for so long, and now I don't believe that DCR can implement long distance or open water swimming without great safety concerns for boaters and fishermen. And I'd like to ask both of you to give this some great thought and see if we can't accommodate these people who would like the long distance swim, because I think that's a valuable tool as well. But there are other areas that could be done without disrupting the balance of recreational activity at Comet Pond.
And Ed, I will forward your correspondence, which I have not yet, to the senator and the
You got it.
representative. You got it?
Yeah, I got it yesterday,
Perfect.
the day before.
They got it. We're good, Ed.
I do wanna state one thing, Long Pond will just be off the list right away. It's part of the reservoir system and they will not allow any swimming, DCR, period.
Sir?
My name is Steven.
That's not a true statement,
Uh,
because we're part of the watershed system too that goes directly to Quabbin.
It's
So
just-
Long
yeah.
Pond, that's not a true statement, I don't believe.
They have, actually, they have stopped, swimming and longboarding in, Long Pond specifically for that reason. the Comet Pond is far enough away, that they have voted, they allow swimming now, so.
Sir?
My name's Stephen Smith. I'm a resident on the waters of Comet Pond. We've been here 4 years, so relative newcomers. But it's my understanding that the long distance swimming that's occurred so far has been very limited because it has in fact been illegal. It's not allowed, even though it's been kind of, nobody's worrying about it, and a few people are doing that. It hasn't a problem. The concern is if we make it publicly known that it is allowed on the whole pond, with the access from the beach, is that the beach right now is a relatively modest swimming area delineated by buoys. How do you decide who and can and cannot go out and start swimming across the whole pond? There is nobody there except a DCR person, kind of a monitor. There's no lifeguarding. So that's the real concern, is that we're opening it up to a tremendous influx of people. We're gonna say, okay, that guy's going out past the buoy and swimming. Like, what's gonna stop everyone else from essentially trying to do the same thing? And how will it be controlled and monitored? Because I think the worry is that pretty much anybody now goes to the beach says they can swim anywhere on the pond. That's the worry. And we'd like to see a plan to make sure that that's not the case, but more important, how would it be controlled?
Is that typically what happens now? People swim just everywhere there, or is there
Yeah.
a counterclockwise rotation, you just go wherever?
Wherever.
Okay.
So there's a public beach, that's roped off this way.
Yes.
And then, obviously, the residents can swim off of their docks and their areas.
Yeah, and so usually people would go down the boat ramp, even though DCR has a,
Right.
saying, don't, swim. You can swim there, or you can walk a bit further, go through the woods, and there's a place there you can swim.
So there's a DCR staffer there every day?
That I do not know. I know there's
Okay,
no
I
lifeguard.
thought you said there was a staff.
There's usually a moderator, a monitor, will say,
Yeah.
but people use the beach whether or not the gates are open.
Okay.
And as to, there have been 2 long-distance swimmers that I've spoken to that have showed up at most of these meetings, and they've always gone down to the beach. But like I said, there's only a small handful of people that are doing this, even though it's quote unquote against the rules. It hasn't been a problem, and our worry is now we're really opening a Pandora's box for people to be everywhere on the pond, and it's a safety issue.
I have a question. Have you polled your HOA to see who is concerned or who is fine with long-distance swimmers? Or who's?
No, actually, we have a meeting in 2 days, but
Okay.
it's pretty much down the middle. Some people are
Yeah.
very much adamantly against it. I would say most of those people live down the south end, but
Okay.
closer to the boat ramp.
Okay.
I'll put it right out there, I live down the north end, we have at the farm, a lot of people make a beeline right from the beach, right down to us. Somebody drops 2 buoys, we've never seen them drop them or take them away, but people swim up to those and then they tend to swim straight back. And that is by far the less busy, safer end of the lake to do the swimming
Right.
at. We made a hard push.
Your
with-
side of the lake is.
Our side of the lake,
Okay.
the north end of the lake.
Right.
Yeah, is far safer for the
And I
distance
think
swimmers.
that's why DCR wanted to get it away from the ramp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We pushed them very hard to want to get it away from the ramp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many houses are on that lake?
How many what?
Houses?
29.
Oh, so it's, okay.
Yeah. And in my head, when I do a count, there's probably about 6 or 7 that have motorboats.
Yeah.
Most of us residents do not have motorboats.
So Mr. Boudreau, on Google Meet, did you have a question? I figured we'll take 1 or 2 more about the Comet Pond issue, let the legislators speak, and
Hello. My name is Susan Mitchell.
hi Susan.
I own property on Comet Pond,
Someone's too close to her computer.
and I am concerned about how crowding is affecting our breeding population of diving birds. For example, loons. Is there any organization responsible to monitor if our diving birds have been eradicated?
So DCR has scientists and biologists that do a lot of that stuff. I'm not sure if they do that specifically, diving birds, but it's something we could certainly ask them if they could monitor or look at.
Frank Boudreau? Frank, going once, going twice. Ed, this will be the second time speaking on Comet Pond, so let's be cognizant of the senator and representative's time and that there are a variety of issues to be spoken about this evening. Thank you. Go ahead, Ed.
He's muted.
He's muted.
You're muted, sir.
We did not hear you.
Did you mute him before, Nate?
I did, but it won't let me unmute him.
Oh.
It's stuck.
Hold on to that button.
Hold on.
By the way, I'll post a reminder about the Ware River Watershed Advisory Committee meeting on the Hubbardston People Facebook page.
Thank you.
Okay?
Yep, sounds good.
I usually try to, but
Mhm.
last month I was not in a position to do that.
Any other
Eric?
questions?
Yeah, my name is Eric Goodhart. I'm a correspondent for the Turley newspapers, but I'm also a resident of Hubbardston. And what I want to just point out that when I first was aware of the problems that the folks owning property on Comet Pond, it was a concern of mine, and I wanted to investigate it. Entering from the north side where the boat ramp is, there's an enormous amount of signage there, and it's been there for years, no swimming. But this long distance swimming has increased, a lot of activity from a group in Worcester, and I'm a backer of that kind of exercise. I don't do as much anymore, but now that I know what Comet Pond is, I just might if it was practical and works, but it
Just stay on the north side if you go.
Swimmers, swimmers are, very physically fit, the proper is, but the carelessness, perceive what I see as the increase in boat traffic and kayak usage does create problems. And the other thing at the signage on the north side of the lake, where the boats are supposed to be first inspected for the, there's a sign there that says, check the other side, report where your boat has been before you launch. We wanna make sure that the hulls are clean, That's laughable. It is not, it is completely has been ignored ever from the get-go. So in order to solve that problem, it seems that first maybe consider, you mentioned permit, but I didn't know what your idea was in terms of permitting.
Oh, I didn't talk about permitting.
You used the word
boats.
permit a little while ago, and I wasn't sure.
They were talking about permits for Long Pond, so that was one of
Yeah.
the issues when
Okay.
they were limiting the
Yeah.
number of boats from.
But I see a possible solution to cut down or control the traffic. There are two problems. Processing the permit, which I think is not a big problem if it can be done online, but then who would monitor who's using it? So that's would mean a person like we have at the beach, someone to monitor activity at
nobody
the
at the
beach.
beach. There's nobody at the beach.
So there's nobody there, so.
So what,
I
if
was
they
wondering
just
if
open the
someone
gate?
there-
Oh.
Occasionally, they open it up, they lock it up.
It's not an
Oh,
everyday
that's-
thing.
okay.
Nobody
So, and
stays
that
there.
costs money.
It's not a once a week
Alright,
thing.
so,
Yeah.
but I mean, leaving it up to the honor system and so forth, I think just has to be a raising of consciousness in all the potential users of the pond in the future in terms of safety and cleanliness and proper following the rules, And
Yep, and we're gonna have some dessert in a little while.
Yeah, he did.
Yes.
Even here.
Yeah, we
Same
are.
to Slade Building.
Oh, a question for either one of you. Comet Pond's considered a great pond in Massachusetts, which means it needs public access for
Correct.
boating and fishing. So I don't know if you can even limit the number.
So you can't wet through this with a pond in Spencer. the Great Pond, you can't stop people's access, but you can have a set of parameters for that
Okay.
access. So you can say you can't have a boat over 10 horsepower,
Right.
whatever it is, you can do stuff like
Yeah.
that.
So, Ed, you keep unmuting yourself. Before you have your dessert, did you wanna make one more comment?
What's he having for dessert? That's
Yeah, and we want
Yeah,
some.
I just wanna
There he is.
I just wanted to make a closing statement, the change is not gonna affect me personally, I care more about the fishermen and the boaters who have been doing this for decades. And why would DCR want to disrupt a balanced recreational activity between boaters, kayakers, paddle boarders, and swimming as it now exists at the beach? Why would they want to disrupt that when there are 2 or 3 alternatives that would allow long-distance swimmers to accomplish their goals and not have safety issues, as was pointed out by the chief of police, and also the fact that there are no lifeguards there, there's gonna be no response to anyone who has a drowning issue, or if anyone got hit by a boat. I think these are state issues of responsibility that I'd like to have both our state senator and representative, see if they could look into for the good of DCR and all those users at Comet Pond. Thank you.
We can certainly meet with DCR with his questions and, try to get some answers, but I think they have a delicate balance, and and you remember this from the meetings, was DCR takes a hit, and rightfully so, a lot of times, because they're Department of Conservation, they forget about the recreation part a lot.
Yeah.
So in some of those meetings, we had DEP people and EPA people on the TV, and they were the most condescending people ever, and just thought that we had no idea what we were doing, and they tried to shut down fishing at Quabbin before, and I mean, so I don't know, I think there's a lot of too much government oversight when that recreation part comes out, so.
Mike's got his hand up.
Mike,
Thank you for acknowledging me. Mike Stahl, 5 Lombard Road. Just quick statements. I heard from Mr. Smith stating a couple of things. Cindy and Mr. Blanchard. One of the points is that we're somewhat saying that all these other alternatives don't have the same problem that you've identified for Comet. There's no monitoring at the other places. Safety is going to be the same thing. So I don't really see the difference there. The other thing is that it seems to be the tail wagging the dog. The number of swimmers is minor in comparison to others. And then there was the comment about the boats having to be self-inspected. And I take a little exception to that, although I'm probably in the minority. I, in fact, did self-inspect and clean my boat before going to Comet, and I checked with other residents of the town. They said, "Oh, we don't do that." And at the time, I was a non-resident of Hubbardston. I am now a re-resident of Hubbardston. I grew up in the town, and many of these comments about longevity of issues, I remember, matter of fact, one of my friends from early childhood here remembers swimming the length of Comet with me. So this is not a new phenomenon. It's more formalized, but I think the numbers are really low. And I heard comments from Mr. Blanchard about the safety of the fishermen and boaters and kayakers. I happen to be a kayaker, and I think their safety is not really the issue. It should be the swimmers, but we should ask the swimmers if they feel unsafe. We keep imposing our opinion that it's unsafe, and I've done distance swimming, and I feel pretty safe out there. So, whose safety are we looking out for? And is it a perceived safety issue, or is it a true safety issue? Ask the swimmers about that. Thank you.
Would it be helpful to everybody for the Comet Pond thing if we could, would it, and I'm not sure about this, I'm not a swimmer and couldn't probably swim from here to Nate's office, I'll be honest. to maybe designate a certain area for that, or a path around the lake, or is that something we should talk
tough.
DCR about?
No, that's really tough, because then you have to put buoys and stuff like that, and then, and like, for instance,
And
I
if we had
like.
buoys and there was some semblance of order and it was a lower risk of anybody getting hurt.
Yeah, but the thing could be is that they could put buoys like sort of in front, up close to the boat ramp and say no swimmers past this point. That's about it, cause some people wanna go straight out and back. I tend to go sort of around the edges, that sort of thing, but I'll go across if I feel like it. And then you have the kayakers, the motorboats that are that are wondering, what are these buoys doing here? I actually felt very safe on Comet Pond. Again, I was used to swimming in Queen Lake, which was with all the motorboats and water skiers, so Comet Pond was beautiful.
So in respect of the time of the representative and senator, I figured I would let them.
You can say Donnie and Peter, seriously.
Fine.
Nate.
I know you both, so. I'm trying to be formal and people stop me all the
No,
time.
yeah, I know.
Like regular guy.
People stop me all the time. Well, so in respect to Donnie and Peter, I figured I'd let them close out the Comet Pond discussion for the moment, go on and talk about
Yeah, I
other
think we
issues
got enough
that-
info that we can forward the questions and ask around and try to get some info.
Thank you.
And I think that's it. Obviously, there's a lot of competing interests here. And I don't know that you're gonna make everybody happy all the time. And so, but it's important that we try to work out solutions that are gonna work pretty good. So with Donnie, we'll reach out to DCR. We'll keep attending those meetings and we'll
Great, thank you.
figure out how we can,
Thank you.
make it work.
Appreciate it.
Who's next?
Francois?
Francois Steiger, 65 Healdale Road. Again, I'm part of the planning board, but I'm also a resident here in town, and I'm also part of the structural deficit working group that we have here in town. The reason I'm addressing both of you, and this is something I've addressed, and I just using the forum again as a reminder, our town's fiscal difficulties are very, very apparent, and will be even more apparent from what I understand over the next several weeks. One of the things that is always very prevalent in my mind is the fairness of the actual reimbursements that towns like ours receive from the state for state-owned land, as well as for pilot money that comes from watershed. We just want to remark that of the 351 cities and towns that are here in the Commonwealth, 297 receive state funding for state-owned land. What I found very interesting is that the increase in the allocation of monies that are coming back to all of these towns, including obviously Hubbardston, actually from fiscal year 24 to 25 has only increased 0.07%, which is a laughable amount. And more importantly to note here is that the town of Hubbardston is one of maybe around 260 towns that will not see an increase. And so I think, again, it is important for members of our town to not only realistically understand this here, but implore that you as representatives of a community such as ours, take this into consideration. We had this discussion with Ann Goby. She was very positive and receptive towards trying to provide us with some ways in which we can communicate it. But I think you as the individuals who are in the legislature can do even more about this here. Again, I bring up the point that we have roughly about $8 million worth of property from the state that has just not gone up in value. Actually, as a matter of fact, from last year to this year has not gone up in value. And again, our portion of allocation for state-owned land has actually decreased if you look at the whole pot.
Overall, yeah.
In addition to this here, we also lack because of the revaluation that we have in terms of our taxes going up, but our percentage rate that we are actually, or the actual dollar rate that we are actually going to be charging for both commercial as well as residential has dropped from $13.03 to $11.79. The watershed, as a matter of fact, has also not increased. And so we have two portions of state funds that this particular town really depends on in order to be able to take care of its resources where we have not seen funding. I remind everybody, we are going to be receiving or have received already a school budget that's gonna be increasing tremendously. That's another area that we implore you to take a look at. Fairness is very important. Towns like ours are already starting to look at how do you reduce each one of the areas of the town's budgets. That would be fire, police, administrative, library, etc. And so we really are hitting a wall. And I just would like to make sure that you as, again, members of the legislature, and obviously everybody who's present here, because some of us don't really, some people do not understand the difficulties, the financial difficulties that this town is going through, that we're gonna be hitting a wall very, very soon. And unless we get some relief that gets from the fairness of how we are getting reimbursed for some of the services that are provided to, obviously, our children, but other children from other towns, that comes with regards to the schools, a proper reimbursement for the state-owned land, and a proper reimbursement for the watershed, we're being strangled. And I really think this is an important element for you to bring back to your colleagues, because it's not just Hubbardston, there's other communities that are in similar dire straits. Thank you.
So we can tell you we're both on the Ways and Means Committee, and the first hearing is actually Wednesday. So how that works is there's 8 hearings by the major departments in the budget. So Wednesday is the governor actually comes in, and then Secretary of State and Treasurer, and then Attorney General. And then we travel. So the one after that I think is in Dayton, and it's on ag and environmental. So when we get to the school budget, the school one and local aid is all in the same hearing. That's usually at UMass Amherst. So we can certainly bring, you guys aren't alone. And unfortunately, the revenues aren't looking too great right now. So this is like a process in motion, so we'll probably have more information for you in the next few weeks.
To speak to the severity of that issue, earlier today, we received what the starting bid is going to be, and it's $15.93 or $901,000 over last year's.
For transportation?
For school.
Oh, school.
Oh.
Okay.
Over last year's 7% ridiculous increase.
Yep.
It's asinine. This town, for all new growth, all taxes coming in, has about $420,000 next year over this. To have to give all of that to one pool of money that we do support.
And cut other stuff.
And we would have to cut other stuff. Yeah.
Well, I think that's, that's part of the point, right, is as we go through this budget process, we all know the governor just, she issued her budget, $58 billion, about 3% increase. And the town of Hubbardston has gotten a 3% increase, again, from hers. Now, remember, there's an old saying, right? It's that the governor proposes the budget and the legislature disposes of her budget. And so.
And that can be a good thing.
And that can be a good thing. But as we go through this, it's, I think it's about the priorities that we have as a state in how we go about funding these things. So when we look at the educational component of that needs to be a larger portion. So as we go through these Ways and Means and hearings, those are the things that we're advocating for. As we talk about regional school transportation, that's gonna be a big, we were able to get, at least in the House last year, we were able to get 100%. It got knocked it back to.
It was like 92 last year.
Percent.
So respectfully though, do you know what 3% increase in UGA funding is for Hubbardston?
I do.
$21,000.
Yeah, I have it on my phone.
But now everybody's just finally, I know Spencer is finally, and I'm guessing other towns as well, finally caught up to where they were when everybody got cut in '09 with the Great Recession. So we all got cut. Peter and I were both selectmen then, and I forget how much we had.
But these, like I said, these are the priorities that we have to go through as a town, as a state, and that's the difficult part.
I understand. What we want to express to you is areas such as education, very important, and those are probably areas where you can move things as because everybody knows about it. The two areas which I have seen absolutely no movement in the last 5 to 10 years is the watershed pilot And I repeat that because it is something that has not moved in God knows how many years for us. And there's an element of fairness that has to be allotted to that, as well as with regards to state-owned land. If we really account for those two items, the largest proportion of tax revenue that potentially could come into our town comes from those two sources, from a single source, which is the state. And yet that has not increased, and as I said, overall, and this is a ridiculous amount, that has only gone up with 0.069% from fiscal year 24 to fiscal year 25. I understand it's land, I understand a lot of it is conservation land, but the state-owned land oftentimes is not. It includes buildings, it includes facilities, and other structures. And there has to be a reallocation of monies that are actually designated for that fund, which absolutely has been, it has been publicized that it is underfunded. And it needs to be better funded by the state in order to be able to, again, reimburse our communities equitably for the benefit that the state gets out of it.
Plus,
So we're gonna let
Hold it.
Susan speak, then
Before
Mike.
Susan loses her mind back there.
Okay.
I'm
really sorry,
He's
I'm
gonna
just
jump
getting a
over the
little
bench.
bit, really, okay, so, listen, we know that the entire country is going through a tight budget. But nobody ever talks about, well, what is it that we can look at that maybe let's cut in these places? And may I strongly suggest that you look at the state mandates for the school. When you know, I love children, but there are children that get free lunch and free breakfast, and their parents are making 6 figures.
Everybody
Okay.
gets free
Yeah,
lunch.
the
every
state
month.
That's
does.
right,
Yeah, the state does.
everybody, that's a state mandate. Can we maybe look at that? That could maybe.
That's surprisingly not as much money.
But you gotta
But no,
start
you're right.
someplace. What about the empty school buses that drive by the house every day? And nobody gets on that school bus, but they gotta go by. Can we look at that? Maybe that's transportation, maybe we can cut that.
That you have to go to your school board for.
Yeah, they
But those
shrink, no,
are
they
state
shrink,
mandates.
but no, but they
No.
shrink the school buses according to how many kids sit on there. So in other words, if parents aren't putting their kids on the bus and they get called, then that stop gets eliminated. So therefore, that's why the school buses, there's way less than there used to be. Even though a lot of the people still drive and we still have a good amount of kids, there are less
Or
school buses.
parents, put your kids on the bus.
That's a
You
different
know,
argument.
it's your tax.
Completely.
I'm just saying.
That's not gonna solve our $900,000
Yeah, that's
bill
not gonna
coming
solve
down.
it.
But, listen, you gotta start someplace. You gotta start someplace, keep it simple, stupid, you know?
Well, the parents and the taxpayers have to go to the school committee and fight.
Yeah.
That's where
I will tell you with the state mandate stuff, so just since the time I've been in the legislature, a lot of that stuff, has been filed with the auditor's office, and the auditor has upheld that, saying it's not an unfunded mandate. I will also say the new auditor is like a very cool person, so she might have a different opinion, and she's fabulous, so.
Hold on.
A lot of this stuff could come into play pretty soon, and she's really good, she's very fair, so we'll see what happens.
Well, just, you know, keep feeding her that stuff and maybe.
I text her all the time.
Good, keep it
Mike.
up, good job.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, thank you for acknowledging me. Mike Stahl, 5 Lombard Road. I most strongly echo Mr. Steiger's comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Sue, Auditor Zaglio is someone that I'm working on getting down here for one of those. It would be a larger scale one, but we're working on it.
You would love her.
Is it just,
Yeah.
If she comes, let us know. Or I can text her, I'll try to get her.
Okay. Rosemary Southwick, 20 Williams Hill Road. If you don't pay your taxes, or you don't pay your taxes, or the right amount of tax on it, you lose your property. So if you could take back to the state that they either sell the property, give us authority to sell the property, or they pay the taxes that are due. I mean, it's pretty bad when you have a state-run, very educated people and they don't pay taxes, which is not uncommon, but, you know, so that's the problem. They're not paying their taxes. It's not that they don't, they shouldn't have the
The
right.
problem is they're paying, but they're dictating what they're paying.
Well, right, they don't have.
They assess their own
right.
They would
demand.
say that they're paying, they're paying, they just get to tell you how much they're gonna pay.
But why, where is that?
Well, we can all try to do that.
Where is that authority lie? I mean, why
That's a good question, I
don't,
don't know the answer to
you
that.
know, I know it
In
may
Mass
be
General law,
unanswered
but you have
and
to find
you
their
just
location.
ignore it, but all these years,
It's
they
Peter's-
shouldn't,
May I answer
it shouldn't be
something?
ignored. I
Well,
mean,
there's
you
another
represent
woman
the
who wants to speak
taxpayer
also.
in the town, and the state is supposed to work for us, not work against, and they're working against us.
Yes. As Peter said, that's
And
probably.
hopefully it'll blow up, you know,
Lost
this year so
somewhere.
bad that.
I don't
Yeah.
know where it is.
Maria Tarigny, 40 Streeter Road, can you update us on the gun bill?
So, I noticed he's having.
The senator can- they did it yesterday,
That's
or
it,
last week.
Thank you. So, yeah, so the Senate passed, their version of the gun bill, last Thursday. And, I can tell you that the version that has passed is significantly better than the one that came from the House, but it is still not a good bill. It did receive, endorsement from the Mass Chiefs of Police. It has many provisions in there that are at least acceptable, some grandfathering provisions, some different aspects of it. But one of the things you have to recognize now is that you have two different versions of the bill, right? In fact, there's no similarities in them whatsoever at this point. And what that means is that now it goes to a conference committee. That conference committee has not been announced yet. We expect it'll be announced this week, or it should. That'll consist of 6 members, 3 from the House, 3 from the Senate, 4 Democrats, 2 Republicans, 1 Republican from each house, each branch. Those 6 people will then come up with, or theoretically will come up with a version to bring forward to the House and Senate to vote on. We have absolutely no idea what they can come up with because there's nothing in there that was the same. Basically, when the bill came from the House, the Senate just stripped out the language, so it came through as 4139. And it will change numbers a whole bunch of times. It's
It's
just
like
the-
100 less
yeah,
pages
it's
to
just
it.
the way it works. It changes numbers. So it comes to the House as H 4139, and the Senate strips out all of the language, so it's just a shell, it's just a number, and they insert their bill, a whole new bill. So there's nothing in the 2 bills that are the same. If you're in favor of the Second Amendment, that's a good thing. So it's gonna take a while for them to hammer out an agreement, and they may not. Technically, they have until July 31st. That is the last day that sessions, you can take a formal vote, and if they don't do it by then both die. I get a lot of emails, I'm sure Donnie does too, we get a lot of emails and calls, and people say, well, what about this provision, what about that provision? And my answer is kind of the same, which is, don't worry about it, because it may survive, it may not. Don't worry about something that we have no idea if it's gonna move forward. What we wanna see is what comes out of this conference committee.
And what happens when they appoint the conference committee, if you're on that, I've been on a few, then you start getting emails. So if Peter gets appointed on that conference committee, he's gonna get 1 million emails a day from both sides, so. But like he said, there's been a lot of bills since we've been, the Ed Reform Act was a big one that died. It never got passed, so we had to do it again the next year, because there's sometimes a lot of big stuff just doesn't get done because the House and Senate typically don't get along.
Yeah, and right now, the House and Senate right now, are really at odds. And, it's not even necessarily Democrat versus Republican, it's House versus Senate.
It's not down there, you would think it would be, it is not.
Not when you get into a conference committee.
Yeah.
So like I say, that's where we are right now. We both passed bills, House and Senate, and now a conference committee is gonna hammer it out and try to figure out what a bill should look like.
And Peter has the dubious distinction of being the only person in that building who can vote twice. You have to vote in the House and in the Senate on the same bill.
Francois?
Jeff, thank you again for the opportunity. Councilor Steiger, 65 Hillville Road. I'm talking here more as a planning board member. I was not sure if your comment came directly in regards to income tax or in regards to property tax. I can tell you when it comes to property tax,
Right.
the town of Hubbardston and the planning board, what we have done, we've looked at the list of delinquent properties, and we actually gave certain amount of monies in order to pursue the execution against the title of those homes. To the benefit of the town, one of those was resolved by the arrears taxes actually being paid, and I believe 1 or 2 properties were actually taken back by the town so that it can be either developed or can be sold in order to be able to put it back into the tax rolls. The problem here in the town of Hubbardston is we have a lot of very small little lots. We're talking about things that are sometimes
You can't build.
100 square feet or something that is unbuildable. And a lot of these individuals who own these properties just simply say, all right, take it away from me. And it just is it's a very costly process. It takes roughly about $5,000 to $6,000 to go to court, and it's a lengthy process. It takes between 1 to 2 years. And oftentimes for the town, it's not worth it to go after those types of properties. But certainly, if there's large properties that are in arrears and that we should be following up on in order to bring them back into the tax roll, there are ways in which we have done that in the past, and there's no reason why we cannot repeat doing this here in the future.
And that's what I'm asking them to do for the state property.
Oh, no, the
I mean,
state,
in reality,
the
but I
state-
know it's totally
Yeah,
different.
state-owned land is state-owned land is different. State-owned land is property the state owns in the town of Hubbardston, for which they pay a certain amount of taxes. What is interesting to me is that we have no say about the value.
Right, that's what I
And
mean.
for me, this is very interesting because there's no assessor out there, except that the assessment is made by the state itself. And so as a result of that, that's why the state can get away with increasing their valuation just by 0.07%
So that's
from year
what
to year.
we're asking you to
It's
change.
good to be the state, right?
I'm not sure if there's a formula,
Just
or
change it.
are we gonna find that to see
Yeah.
how that number, is it
Right.
just arbitrary, or honestly, I can't answer
I
the question.
just don't.
A lot of people would like to know, and
Yeah.
it certainly,
I would too.
it certainly has been a part of a debate that's taken place. And I do believe, and I do know that the state auditors have brought it up in the past as it not being fully, funded by the legislature, or it being underfunded, and in often cases being undervalued.
Yes.
There's a man, who is not really part of the Ware River Watershed Advisory Committee, but he's done a lot of research on the pilot programs. His name is Dennis, I can never say his last name, but I don't know if it's, you may be interested in talking with him, but he's done a lot of research on that as well. And in fact, I was supposed to actually talk to Nate about, bringing you folks up to snuff on the pilot program, and what he's found out, which I never did, sorry. I do have a question about the unfunded mandates, because I know police have unfunded, fire, school. So you said they're not supposed to be unfunded, that they're supposed to be
No.
funded by the state, or?
No, I've said in the past, since I've been there, and probably before I got there, that they've been challenged, some of them.
Okay.
And it goes to the auditor, and every time
Oh.
the auditor has found that it's not an unfunded mandate at the state.
Okay.
Yeah, so it is a decision that the auditor makes.
Okay.
And so, as Donnie mentioned, Auditor DiZoglio.
She's great.
Yeah, she's good. We both served with her, right? You served with her?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, she sat 2 seats away from me, she was
and,
Spitfire, that one.
Yeah, and so you may get different rulings
Yeah.
from her.
Okay.
And she's got an axe to grind with the legislature.
She's the one trying to audit the legislature, and they're fighting her.
Oh, good.
And we're all, that would be the greatest thing in the world, but they're fighting her, tooth and nail, so.
It's on the ballot, right?
Yeah, they don't wanna be accountable.
She's trying to get it on the ballot.
Yeah.
Did she get enough signatures?
She got enough signatures the first time, but the process then becomes, again, like anything in the state, it's a convoluted process. So once you get your first set of signatures, the legislature then gets to decide whether or not to put it on the ballot. And if the legislature decides not to,
Yeah.
then you have to go get more signatures.
Which
That
had-
seems
Which is most
ridiculous.
often
Yeah.
what happens.
Yeah, that just seems ridiculous.
Would anyone in person here that has not spoken or watching from home like to speak
What
on
did
an
Ed have
issue?
for dessert?
I don't know.
He's still
He's
on?
gone.
He's gone.
He's gone. Must have been a very good.
Do we have any other issue that
It's
someone would
gotta
like
have
to
enough
bring
for
up?
everybody next time.
Yes, state your name, please.
So Morgan Brinker, Rolling Woods Road. Nothing specific, but when it does come up with regards to funding for education, I know that a couple decades ago, there was reallocation for, specifically urban and trying to catch certain populations up, but at the expense of many rural communities. So Hubbardston is not alone in that, but we're all starting to hit these roadblocks of what to do. And while education is extremely important, and I feel very passionate about education and making the most for the dollar amount, I implore the state to go back to looking at that formula of how rural schools are funded, because I think Hubbardston's, again, not alone. Rural Massachusetts is all fine. What do? Do we
So-
put at risk our public safety, for education?
We did in the budget, there was a rural school commission, and I got on that in the House. And we actually had a report done by December 31st, 2020, but then COVID happened, so we didn't get it done until like a year and a half after that. Which was good, we had a lot of hearings, there was a lot of input from people, and came up with a list of recommendations. There's a bunch of legislation filed, and actually in the House, Natalie Blais, she's from Sunderland. She was the chair of that, and she's great, so, looked at a bunch of models from across the state. I think was it Wisconsin, it was an extra $400 per student kicker for rural areas. So we do some rural funding now. Last year there was more than, the year before. I don't know what that number is in the budget this year. I've seen it. Do you know what it is, Nate?
I don't know exactly what
You
it
don't-
is. I
you
know they
don't
want
get any.
60, and we get a little bit of it, but last week or the week before.
Do you get it, or you get it with Bob and?
That's where I'm going with this.
Yeah, okay.
Last week or the week before, a majority of the select board and several members of other select boards, town administrators, we were all invited to meet with the superintendent and some staff from Quabbin, where many, many things were discussed, including how many students would be attending next year and what the different increases or decreases were in the student population. One of those things was the increase in rural school funding in the FY 2024 budget, where it was revealed to us that rural school funding would not be used to give us a break on the regional municipal assessments, but used to keep their ESSER funded, so the COVID era ESSER funding projects and positions for longer. So I don't feel as if I can really go to bat anymore and say, hey, rural school aid, rural school aid, rural school aid, when it's not
I mean,
impacting the
that's
bottom
not
line.
the rural school aid's fault, that's your school committee's fault, so, and your superintendent.
Yeah.
Who was really good when she was in West Brookfield. But I don't know.
You know, that's what we were.
She was the principal at the West Brookfield Elementary School, and then she retired, but then she came here as,
Yeah.
she was interim, but they just put her in, right?
Yes,
Yes,
that's correct.
right.
She's a
Yes.
very
Yeah.
nice woman.
She's very
and-
nice, yeah.
And it's not about nice or anything anymore. It's about an inability to afford.
Yeah.
Like, all of us in this room really, really appreciate education, but we also appreciate roads, bridges, being able to
Fire.
pay for
Public
fire
safety.
and public safety.
Yeah.
It's-
People from Newton don't appreciate education right now, they're not too happy.
Oh.
And I know the big number that came in last Thursday will go down, but it's not gonna go from 15.93 to 3.
Right.
Like, so,
We're still looking at 600,000-700,000
Yeah.
anyways.
Increase?
That's a big hit for a town like
Oh,
this.
cool.
Yeah,
Wow. Yeah.
that's a big hit. Well, I mean, we gotta, never mind.
Can we file bankruptcy?
Oh, you don't want that.
File
We'll have to receivership.
Yeah, you don't want that.
The state
Why
comes
not?
in then, you don't
Well,
want that.
And they could just raise your tax rate.
be careful what you wish for.
They'll come in, they'll appoint a receiver, that was in Southbridge, right?
Well, that was for the schools.
Well, what could be worse?
And then they'll raise your taxes to what
Yep.
you need to pay everything, like a lot.
But they're still controlling us anyway, so.
I mean, to a point, I
We
mean, you
can
have to
still
raise your
con-
own taxes right now, but,
one last
We just
thing
took a big
outside
hit
the,
in taxes.
yeah,
Big hit, I mean, up.
yeah.
one
Not
more
even
thing outside
school,
the, oh,
taxes,
sorry,
car insurance.
Did you guys get reval this year?
next year.
Next year?
in addition to that, and not pounding my drum on things that I've already sent you in the formalized letter on behalf of the select board, please pay attention to the Municipal Empowerment Act. There is almost no authenticity in the governor saying, I'm not gonna raise your taxes.
It's a funny
You
name
are.
she gave
Like,
Deval Patrick did that back in '08. He said, we're gonna give cities and towns the tools they need
Yeah.
to get the job done, which is code for you do the dirty work.
Did you guys see that? They didn't wanna give any more money, but they're allowing them to raise like your meals tax and tax cars more.
excise by 5%.
That's dead.
But
And then they talk about it, they pat themselves on the back and they're doing it, which is,
the procurement stuff is great, like, that's all. Some of the actual brick and mortar stuff in that bill is wonderful. But the only means of actually creating revenue, that's not the way a town like Hubbardston could do it.
May I do one more? I think, Morgan, Rolling Woods Road again. I think Donnie, I saw you as either a sponsor or co-sponsor of S-119 is the number right now, but it's just an expansion off of Nikki's Law and resident and, basically it's just actual implementation and use of a abuse registry
Yep.
in homes. So when it comes up, I implore your support of that.
Yeah.
Okay, one, last question from anyone, or statement, because we've used up an hour of their time, and we also have more to do ourselves, so, is there anyone else who would like to offer anything?
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to introduce,
Please.
if I may.
Yes.
Introduce, my district liaison, Jared Grigg here.
How's it going?
Jared's gonna, you're gonna see him around as well. And of course you can contact us at the office, 617-722-1540. Yes, but I did wanna just kinda, show you the guy who's taking all the notes over there. Is Jared, and you'll see him, around from time to time as well, so I just wanted to introduce him. Thank you.
He's welcome. He's your aide?
He's one of them, yeah, he's gonna be the district.
Okay, for this area?
For this area,
Okay,
yep,
excellent.
you'll see him. You'll also see, you might have, Nate, you've probably talked to Ann Godrow, my chief of staff, who works very closely with Donnie's chief of staff, Donna.
By Donna.
And so, you know, the nice thing is everybody, we all work together very closely, and yeah.
Okay.
You'll see.
Okay. Yes.
Just one little thing, Peter, this is probably a touchy subject, and I don't want to spend any time on it other than just put it out there to have you think about it. Is what is the governor's feeling now on the right to shelter? What is going on? What will communities like Hubbardston? how will
Really? We
that-
start that now?
I know, I'm like waiting for it,
I said, no, I just wanna throw it, here it is, it's like the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
And I just wanna put it out there, and I'll be following up with you
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah, in short, you know, as you know, we've been trying to modify the right to shelter law to put forward a residency requirement. As you know, in the federal level, a bipartisan group has put together an immigration bill, which, again, I've been getting a lot of questions on. I'm not on the federal level. It looks more like a foreign aid bill to me than an immigration bill. So, at this point, I can tell you that, we filed that bill in the House. Since I'm not in the House anymore, that's not going anywhere. We're trying to refile it in the Senate, but we're running into some roadblocks with the Senate, Council. They feel that it's unconstitutional. We disagree. We're trying to find a way to get it to the SJC for a ruling, but that's obviously a bit of a process. At this point, I think obviously I can't speak for the governor, but I think she's pinning a lot of hopes on this federal bill, providing some relief. I wouldn't hold my breath for too long, but that's a short answer to say that I have absolutely no idea. You know, but we're working on it, and it's something obviously that's at the forefront of us, because it's eating into you know, when we talk about our local budgets, right, we all know that we're in the 24 budget that we're currently in, we're down about $1 billion. We know that revenue is not coming in, it's not coming in the way it's supposed to. We know that the immigrants are currently costing, at least on the books, are costing us about $1 billion a year. That number's actually a lot higher because that number just has some very specific parts to it, which are the housing and the food, but doesn't account for the mass health. It doesn't account for the educational portion, and so many other parts of it. So we think that number's a lot higher. It's, and here we're going into the budget, 2025 budget. Of course, you know, like I said, the governor put that out. The House will be taking that up first in April. You know, so if there's any questions about money and money for the town, Donnie's the guy to talk to.
That's okay.
But then after they're done, it'll come to the Senate. But yeah, so it's gonna be a tough budget, and there's not gonna be an easy solution, and I wouldn't hold my breath too long for a federal solution to that. So.
Absolutely, the last one.
You
okay?
said they're finding it unconstitutional, can you explain that?
So it's right now it's Senate Council, so you have both a House and a Senate Council, right? They're lawyers who
we can use.
Yeah, we can use to draft bills and review bills and try to make sure that they conform to the Constitution. It was not, House Council's opinion was that a residency requirement, which is what we put in, was to say that you have to be in the state for X period of time. And we argued over how much that could be. We said 3 years, we said 1 year, we said 6 months. That you had to be in the state for a certain period of time until you were eligible for these services. House Council didn't have a problem with that. They drafted it and we filed it. Senate Council believes that a residency requirement violates the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. You don't have to ask them for the real in-depth legal analysis of it. We don't agree with that because, and our argument is, you have a time-based residency requirement for in-state tuition for illegal immigrants. You have to be here 3 years. Again, they claim that, well, yes, but that's because they're in school, which makes no sense. So we're trying to, in the Senate caucus, the Senate Republicans, there's some legal maneuverings that we're trying to go through so that the SJC, Supreme Judicial Court, which is the Massachusetts Supreme Court, makes a ruling on this. But we can't just ask them to do it. You have to go through a process, and that's what we're trying to do right now. So, yeah, so they're saying it's unconstitutional. House doesn't agree. We don't agree, but we have to go through the process of trying to go around it.
That's
All
not
right.
money.
Well, thank you. We need to put a halt now on this, and I would like to, on behalf of the town and the board and all of you, I'd like to thank Donnie and Peter for giving up their time tonight. I think these forums are very important. Also, thank all of you for giving of your time to come and express yourselves, and we appreciate that. I think we should do this more often, get a direct exchange, not only between you and I, our board, but have you gentlemen again. Pardon me?
More than happy, because we came here and you guys didn't even yell at us, so this is.
Just come back when the budget is a little bit more out there and.
Bring the auditor.
Yeah.
Bring the auditor. You would love her, she's great.
So we'll take just a short break to allow people who wanna leave before we resume our meeting. And Donnie and Peter, thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Chair.
Good luck.
Really? Okay, just like my dad, huh? Okay, is that good or is that bad? Really? Okay.
Yeah, you're right.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Because,
Well, you know, wonderful gentlemen. I haven't seen him in a long time. I was in
I've been
Toronto.
going to
He's got that nasty cough.
Ware River Water.
I know he's had it for like a line or so. He doesn't have pneumonia, you can check out again and stuff.
Well, no, it's not online.
Right, of course, yeah, yeah, but now my way.
Yep, you got it right.
Nice to saw him walking on the bar.
Yep.
I just,
Yeah.
touching, but
Oh, he's, yeah. Good for you. Good for you. Oh, okay, yep,
That's on my town website.
Yeah.
So although I, there's another.
No, that's my brother's name. Yeah, we don't do that, we just have it
All right.
I met your brother, and, he's better, but, he and I were talking
Just
about.
past the 2-year anniversary. But I know a lot more about
It's interesting enough, I see, sometimes it's the same eagle, but it's
I've seen a pair down there when I was walking down.
The guy in charge is telling
Then I
what we're
have
hearing.
contract with my friend.
started with Osprey,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, kind
No
of.
bother with it,
Very nice
yeah.
ladies,
Yeah.
just
Well,
like
thank you.
that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about it.
Because ours isn't, ours is not like, granted, we don't want flunky or anything, but at the same time,
You know, when I say I wasn't born in Hubbardston, you look people were born in hospitals.
volunteerism and, you know,
Trunk of an
financial.
overturned tree.
That's the point, I think,
No,
you know,
but
like-
I can't remember
that's like-
anything earlier than. Yeah, because, I mean, I can't
You
remember.
just got great grades and you're, you know.
Very early 60s. You know, I remember President Kennedy being shot.
Yeah, I know.
I know. So
We
I've
have one
been
year
here a
that we
while.
couldn't give away.
yeah, but I also think sometimes it's still,
No, it's,
sometimes a little bit more.
And then
He was on
the
the
town one that I said on that.
So the guy was plugged in. He's my
Everybody, we need to continue our meeting, so if you don't mind.
Take care, Cindy. Good luck with your day.
Thank you.
Yep, but every $1,000 you get enough of them, it holds up. It helps,
30 years, I'll give them their
especially
chair
with
back.
the scholarship. You get a check sent to you, so you can put it on your books. You can use it on, you know, yeah, it's not, it's not.
Thank you.
We have light, sir.
That's what it says.
Thank you.
Yeah, right.
Good to see you.
Appreciate you guys coming.
Well, yeah, but the exit goes.
Thank you.
That's what it said on, that's what I was told by Claudia.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you.
Wow, I don't.
Katie, nice to see you.
Nice to see you, thank you.
Bye now.
Thank you for coming.
Of course, anytime.
Don't worry, we'll have you back.
There's 25 copies.
Right there you go.
Six copies. No one else took them.
Expressed it very well too. We help each other understand.
Same thing.
See why they call it an owl. Oh yeah, you said something like a penguin.
To me, it looks almost like a penguin, but I guess it's more sort of like the shape that it has.
Really nice.
Oh my God. But yeah, I can see how it becomes an owl.
I think that's a I think the lights are because the
Cameras on the top. How many cameras does it have? And do they go
Also,
individual?
because it has a camera on top of it, so you can actually.
Is the camera
Oh,
bigger?
yeah.
That's one of these.
Boiler Man, I
Yes,
guess the
it doesn't
library.
like spin.
Training items. Yeah,
I'm sure she does.
It's like an old infrared thermometer gun. And now they
Sure, I can give you my.
it takes the imagery too, so you can get pictures of them, it records a lot of data, you can download it, you know, as opposed to the old one. All you got was the temperature,
Yeah,
you know,
this
you
is
point and
just
shoot,
brand.
but this actually takes data.
Everything is pretty.
Pretty cool, the library
But
got
even
one,
that,
you can check them out.
Really?
and the sixth one,
Just
seven.
monitoring
Alright,
the system
okay, I'm
No,
not
all the time.
Well,
Is that what you're telling
you
me?
have to be there to use, it's a mobile.
Yeah, right
piece of-
now.
let's see,
Oh, the
like-
library has one?
Yeah,
okay.
check
I
it out.
didn't
I got
take it right
there.
away, it's because I probably.
Capital improvement, we could, right? Okay.
Yeah, that's what
So you can check it out and use
So,
it?
I mean,
Yeah.
and again,
Communities
what's,
So you can come home
paper that you were-
and see where you're losing your
Keep
keys.
that on.
Oh, the bearing is.
Well, you can do that with the whole
I'd say
thing.
keep everything.
Oh, I see, I see.
Or-
Something
Yeah,
that you do.
and then I'll present it.
Very good. Everything else?
Okay.
Okay, to the next meeting.
Unless someone has, the ARPA could turn into a conversation, if it gets too lengthy,
Yeah.
we'll table it.
Okay, so that's
It's
what we'll
only
do.
8 o'clock. I have a nap. I'm good.
Okay, I'm gonna call the meeting back to order.
Not gonna lie, I took a nap today because I knew this was gonna be long.
Moving on, we have a consent agenda that needs to be dealt with. Specifically, I have one item, but I think there were two. The select board meeting, the minutes for January 22nd. So could we have unless there's a hold, can we have a
I'd like
motion
to
to
make a
accept the
motion.
consent agenda?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Motion made, is there a second?
Second.
Motion second, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Yes, opposed, abstention?
She
said aye.
approved.
Oh, okay.
It's just delayed.
Thought you opposed, okay.
Nope.
Motion carried, thank you. Under new business, we're going to move the capital improvement plan presentation to our next meeting. So we will go right down to the Green Communities Competitive Grant Authorization Request. Nate, can I turn that over to you?
Absolutely, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, the community became a green community in 2019. We actually received the big check and the signs earlier this year due to COVID and the inability of the administration to get out here. One of the major aspects of this Green Communities program is funding for green communities, both at the very beginning where you can get an amount of funds, which we got in 2019 to do some improvements at the school, some improvements at the police department. Were the heaters green community?
I think they were.
And so we got about $350,000 as a original amount for becoming a green community designee. After that, you have to spend all of your designee money, and then you become eligible for what they call competitive grants, where they will pick a number of grant projects each year. So this year, what we had put in for was a $188,000 project to do heat pumps at the library to create efficiencies on the boiler, which is now brand new. So that's fun. And $10,000 worth of heat and temperature efficiencies at the school to increase the weatherization project that they did last year. There was going to be a second portion of this grant application for another project at the school, but a part of that was going to be in bill repayment on the back of the school's energy bill for the next 10 years, so they did not want us to apply. So we will be hesitant about putting school projects on there in the future, but that's a conversation for another day. Long and short, to keep this meeting short, we got the grant. There is a $12,000 matching fund. The matching fund was going to be covered by the Library Board of Trustees. When the boiler went, the Library Board of Trustees could no longer foot the bill on the $12,000, so they respectfully asked that we take that back because they paid $23,700 for the brand new boiler. The $12,000 is within the capital plan that will be presented on the 21st with Finance Committee and Capital Improvement Planning Committee endorsement. I ask for your authorization to receive this grant.
And signed the necessary.
And signed, yeah.
Okay, so, we have a motion?
Yep, I'd like to make a motion to authorize to accept the grant and to up to, let me rephrase that.
Authorize Nate to sign.
authorize, yes, that's what I was missing, Nate to, accept and sign the necessary contracts with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Motion's made, is there a second?
Second.
And second, any discussion?
I believe Heather had a question.
Heather, yes.
Just a quick question, Nate, on that, so what happens if for some reason we can't get that $12,000 matching at annual town meeting to our Green Communities grant for that piece?
So unfortunately, that sounds like a problem for later us, but I would try to find $12,000 within the operating budget. Right now, I am hoping that the general public in annual town meeting will see the value in spending $12,000 to get $188,000.
Okay, just checking, thanks.
Okay, any other comments? Oh, Francois.
Just a general comment and question, and that is that with the new heat pump that you have, it really changes your fuel from oil to electricity. Did you perchance receive a comparison of the savings that you might get when you compare the oil consumption on an oil boiler versus the more efficient new and the electricity costs?
Yes, the ROI is less than 15 years. So, and I can show you that form. It's a lot of numbers.
I think the reason I'm bringing this up, I think this is a very good point for you to bring as part of the town meeting.
Yeah.
Maybe in
From a
email
justification
with
perspective.
the whole thing to the public, so that way they can see it.
So 15 years to be even?
Yep.
Precisely.
And then you have to replace it again. So, start all over again. Just saying.
Mhm.
Well,
Hate
nice to look for the positive there, Peter.
Well, I'm just to speak from reality.
I know.
I don't hide behind the curtain.
No, I know.
But you have something for the next 15 years.
Anything else? All right, the motion has been made and seconded. No more discussion, all in favor?
Yeah.
Yes, opposed?
Aye.
And
You
none.
just give her a second to
Motion
respond.
passed. Okay. Next, Nate, if you'd like to, on the senior deck, contract authorization.
Thank you, sir. So this one's been a long time coming. Claudia sent some liaisons in her stead because she is in sunny Florida, but she has put a tremendous amount of work into this over the last few years. If you read in the packet that I had provided, Claudia breaks down the spending to the penny. They received donations that we are grateful for as a community. It is all drawn up, the plans are finalized. The procurement was completed in the fall from my office. It was awarded to Rob Daypray Excavating and something else. Rob Daypray, so I am seeking
It's
a
not right. I wanna say it's.
landscaping and excavating.
Yeah, but I wanna say it's Dupree's.
Dupree.
Debris?
Yeah, something
Alright.
like that, it's, yeah,
Sounds good, Rob.
anyway,
Yeah.
Rob.
Rob
Let's
Dupree.
Rob.
So I am seeking authorization to enter into a contract with Rob D. Landscape and excavation.
Okay. Any questions?
Heather does have her hand
Heather?
up, Mr.
I have a
Chairman.
question too.
Yeah, just a quick question, a couple of quick questions, Nate. So in reviewing the contract, one of the things is it talks about the date of completion, and it currently says the date of completion should be December 31st, 2023.
So the contract got pushed out because it came in way higher than we anticipated, and Claudia and the COA volunteers needed what ended up only being 4 or 5 months to assemble about $40,000. So.
Yeah, is it totally understandable. I just want to make sure that we update that so that's correct.
Yes.
But then my second question is, whose contract language is that? Is that the vendors or is that our contract language?
It's KP Law general contract language.
Okay.
The small project contract.
Then why did I
Okay,
read-
I just,
Sorry.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
Katie, go ahead.
No,
We
because if it's.
filled it in.
Yeah, but I read in there that, which is not a municipality thing, that they had to have a percentage up front and everything else. With municipality, you gotta pay everything at the end, and that was my question.
It's a procurement thing, so there are upfront
Okay,
security bonds.
alright, okay.
And
but I think if I understood Katie's question correct, cause I was on the same piece, if you look at the first couple of sheets, it's their quotation, it looks like. And they have their language in that says they're getting 10% before anything happens, 40% upon procurement of their materials, and then the rest upon what they defined as substantial completion of the project and not when everything's done, and that didn't include warranties or any, what's the word for it, the list, at the very end.
Punch list.
yeah,
Thank you.
Welcome.
they're following our contract and our procurement. I can say that with complete certainty.
Okay.
Cause that was in there, that's
Yeah.
why I was
The
reading it. I
quote
was
is
like
not
confused.
part of the contract.
Okay,
The quote is the quote.
okay. And that's part of the quote that we
And
were
that's part of the-
reading?
that's part-
Okay,
The quote is
And we
not
have-
within the contract.
Okay.
The contract has its own stipulations, and Mr. Dupree, by signing the contract, agrees to follow our pay schedule and Massachusetts procurement law.
okay.
Okay. And we have any bonds required from him?
I believe so. But we will not get them, this is the first step, I haven't sent it to Rob yet. Carolyn did approve the form and noted that she would sign after I and Rob signed to ensure that bonds were paid appropriately and all of the i's were dotted and t's were crossed.
Excellent, thank you.
Anything else? If not, can we have a motion?
I would like to make a motion to authorize Nate to sign any necessary contracts with Rob, landscaping and excavation.
Motion's made,
Just
is
gotta go with it.
there a second?
Second.
And second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Congratulations, ladies. Tell Claudia we said good job.
Send her a text. She'll be able to sleep tonight.
Okay, next item, emergency management planning grant contract authorization. Again, Nate, if you would.
This is a $2,700 grant received annually by Judy O'Donnell, who may still be on the computer. She is not, but it is matched by her volunteer time, which we are very grateful for, and allows her to do some of the activities that she does with CERT and emergency management. Chief, do you know anything additional on this grant?
I don't.
No.
Any comments, questions? Okay, so would need a motion to authorize the sign.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize Nate to sign the grant contract on behalf of the town of Hubbardston.
Okay, motion made, is there a second?
Second.
And second, any discussion?
Yes.
Peter, go ahead.
The only thing I wanna discuss is I think that the grant, the majority of that grant is for training purposes.
Yes.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Is that it? Okay, alright, any other comments, questions? Alright, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Move to old business. Coordination of the ARPA funds to reconcile the unpaid allocations. If you would.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this has gone back and forth for some time now. It has been unfortunate that we were not able to stay with the original allocations as outlined by the ARPA committee now going on a year and a half ago. But as different projects came to light, there turned out that there was a $46,920 agreement that was made in 2020 by the then select board that did not have any funding source. I firmly believe that the intent of the town administrator and the select board chair at the time was to put it into ARPA and seek that money through that process, but that did not happen. So that had to move around a number of priorities, and that is the main project that shuffled here. Additionally, as we've talked about before, there will be at town meeting, if this is approved, a $7,000 allocation request to get the remainder of the easements out of the ARPA rolls, because the amount of time we have to keep the money available for the residents of Main Street and Gardner Road for their easement opportunity is longer than the window of our ARPA commitment. So that is just cleaner to get out of there. Hopefully down the road, after the easement window is closed, we will get that money back in free cash. But for now, this is the cleanest. The proposal right now is to keep the senior deck project $50,000. Keep the ambulance radios, which the invoice is currently pending for $3,415.45. Reduce the public safety / town hall feasibility study to $30,000 from $60,000. Pay $46,920 to Amarillo for the outside of scope Main Street project. And I have reduced open space trails from $16,000 to $15,000 with Mark and the board's blessing to come up with the one last $1,000 that I did need to make this balance.
How does that affect their grants that they're going after?
He said it was fine. I called him the day that he was filling out the application, so he changed one number.
So did any ARPA project get completely eliminated?
No, sir.
And do we have a real quote for 30,000 for the feasibility study, or something?
Not at this time.
I don't think that's a wise choice right now, with the way the economy is, the way our town is right now. We're hurting for dough. Now, we have 30,000, I mean, I understand, a public safety building would be awesome, but taking 30,000 on something you're never gonna get in a 2.5 override for is kinda stupid, as far as I'm concerned. Or not the wisest choice, let me put it in those words.
I don't disagree, sir.
So, why can't we table that public safety thing for a later date when the economy's a little better and the town has a little more money? Take that 30,000, put it towards the boiler we need for the school. It needs to run, because you can't build a school. That's my feeling on this. Now, I don't know where I need to go with that, but that's just my personal feeling. I just don't think now is the time to be talking feasibility studies for fire stations, public safety, or town hall. We're not in a good way.
I don't disagree with you. This was very much in this plan already, approved by ARPA for double that money. I've already cut it down from what it was,
I
and
understand.
with a
Let's
select
cut
board
it some
vote,
more then.
that is
Well,
fine.
how much does, I hate to say it, how much does a feasibility study cost? Do we have any clue?
The person that came in that gave me a rough shot quote, because I didn't want to go too far with this until such time as there was actually a final number, gave us around $28,000. That person is the company that in 2016 did the study of the senior center and police department. The company that did the 2019 one with all the pretty photos and the glass building that was
Isn't
slightly
gonna
out of
fly.
scope, was never
Yeah.
gonna fly, she retired. So, and I didn't wanna go too far. I do have names of people and companies that specialize in public safety buildings to reach out to, but I had a feeling that this may come up. I have absolutely zero problem with us tabling the public safety $30,000 to another day. Amarillo would like their money.
Yeah, I can
Well,
understand that.
yeah.
I'm just talking about public safety.
Yeah.
That's a long ways off. as far as I'm concerned. I don't know, maybe some people out here might feel differently, but you're not gonna get a 2.5 override right now, not with our taxes just going up hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for people in town.
I do not disagree with you.
And, car insurance is going up, house insurance, I understand our issues that run the town, but if you can't get your tax money from the people who run the town with what you have, you shouldn't be looking at feasibility studies to build a public safety building.
If that is the sentiment of the board at the end of this conversation, I ask that we just leave the $30,000 there for right now, and we will figure it out at another meeting.
Okay.
Because we do not have the other, what would be $39,000, and we have requested the financial assistance from a number of revenue sources. So I would hope that we could maybe find that, and to allocate that to, say, boiler, stamp it, may be a little premature.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think,
that's fine, but, I mean, also, a feasibility study for a public safety building is gonna be a lot more than $30,000.
So the,
We're in 2024 now, so,
Yeah.
this was, that last quote was off of, what, you said 2019?
so this would be a feasibility study update of sorts. This would get us to an actual cost estimate and taking the old feasibility studies and drawing them back to something that the Public Safety Building Committee deems would be within the appetite of the community.
I mean, I understand we have to move forward and the town's aging and we have buildings and it'd be nice to have a nice new public safety building and everything. Now is not the time.
I wanna chime in here for a second about this. I understand what you're saying, cause we need a boiler, and I get that, but if he's asking for money and all this other stuff, I think right now, we leave it sit there and take no action, because we have a public safety committee working on this. And this is the problem that we've had for the past 30 years. Everyone in this town, every select board previous to us has kicked the can down the road, and that's why we are in such a state of disrepair, where we're trying to, the boiler just blew up over there, the boiler's pissing over here.
Yeah,
We got
everything's
the
old,
roof
yeah.
that's leaking over here, you know what I mean? So if we keep doing this, that's what this is. If we take this 30 grand away, which, don't get me wrong, I hate the whole idea of a feasibility study in general, cause I think it's dumb, let's just build something and get some, like, you know, but you have to do it the way you have to do it. But if we keep pushing it down the line, it will never end. It's the same thing as the roads. We're slowly creeping our way to try to get passable roads in the whole town, and it's been taking us years and we're nowhere. We still don't see an end, and as soon as we get to the end, we gotta start all over again. It's never gonna go away. So if we make this disappear in one fell swoop right this second, we lose our chance of getting there.
My paycheck doesn't go up.
I
I'm not
understand
making
that.
what I was making 6 months ago.
But we don't know how what's gonna be in a year
I just took a big
either.
hit on my taxes, which is crazy, okay? Last year I took a hit on my house insurance. I'm gonna take another hit on my house and a hit on my cars. I don't work. Y'all might work. I don't work anymore, okay? I'm retired. I'm on a fixed income, just like most seniors are in town. The wallets are running, the well is running dry for these people, okay? I can sustain because I have a wife that works. She can work more shifts if she has to, but I can't. But for two retired people that are already on the brink, okay? And now they just got a tax bill, and now they gotta pay $300-400 more this year in taxes. And then the house insurance, and then the car insurance. That's who I'm here to represent.
And I understand what you're saying, but
Okay.
keeping that 30 grand there
But
for
I'm
right
all
now.
right with tabling that.
Yeah, is
Yeah.
not gonna make your
I'm all right with
taxes.
it, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's not gonna change anything right
We're in
now.
a bad way all around. I don't
Exactly.
care what we do, we're just in a bad way financially. We have no money, the school's killing us, and that's all there is to it.
I agree.
The first question is, we need to keep it allocated, right? For fear that it might be clawed back at some point in the future.
Yes, we
So we need to keep it allocated for something.
For something.
To show that
And it doesn't need
we've
to be
got it
tonight.
allocated, right.
We got till
So it's
24.
allocated where it is, I think that's fine where it is, we can always change it. And, are ARPA funds okay to use for a new boiler? Does that project qualify for the ARPA?
I'd say it qualifies than a lot more of the other things
Yes,
that,
it does.
that we've previously.
It's the heartbeat of your building.
So there's no harm in leaving it where it is until we figure out what we need to do.
I'm good with it.
We gotta make sure it's allocated
You
somewhere.
have until the end of the year to commit it.
Is that the deadline?
Yep.
And hopefully some money will come
And
through.
then until the end of next year to spend it.
Yeah.
Oh, so you got 2 years, well, not 2 years, but you got 11 months, and
So
plus a
after the
year.
end of this year, we can recommit it if we deem that's what we need to do.
At the end of this year, it has to be committed to what it is being
Project.
spent on, and then by
Fact.
by the end of next year, if you do not spend it on what you had committed it to by the end of 2024, it goes back.
Okay.
And we
So
are
we have to the
already
end of the
dealing
year,
with with what could potentially be a major COVID clawback already, so I'm not
This
interested
fiscal
in
year, so like June 30th or December 31st, like year?
December 31st.
Okay,
year.
so we have to the end of this year
Yeah.
to
Francois,
figure this
you got
out.
a comment you wanted to make?
A quick comment, I know that you have a public safety building, committee that's actually, meeting, right?
Yep, and Mike is on it.
Oh, good, yes. My point here would be is that, if you have a public safety town hall feasibility study, doesn't it make sense for us to get a report from this group first to see where they stand? And then understand what their projections are from a timing perspective by when they think they may have something, or what the interim needs are. I hear your point, Peter, absolutely well taken. There are higher priorities at this point in time. We do, however, understand and know from a public safety building perspective, this town is hurting. We don't have the facilities. More importantly, I would even say that our insurance rates are probably just a bit higher, based on the fact that the response rate from a fire department is impacted and affected by the fact that they have 2 different locations. They have to be at the first location before they get to the second location, before they can get to the fire. Those are all things that are factored in. And so I think that a public safety building makes a lot of sense. When can that happen? I agree. We don't have that. It will never happen through a 2.5 override. It will probably have to go through a bond process or something else. And there are alternatives that may have to be considered. But the point I think I'm trying to make here is I think we should hear where the public safety building committee stands.
Yeah.
What results have they come back with, and make an assessment out of that. Is it realistic to think that we will potentially utilize it in 2024 or even by 2025? And if not, then reallocate it into something that is much more tactical.
And all of our eggs here are not in feasibility study basket. I have found 3 potential grants to apply for in the last 7 days.
Yeah.
Cause there are a number of federal infrastructure grants coming out. So who knows, maybe we can get the money to design it in another way,
Yeah.
but.
That'd be great.
Last point I wanted to make here is feasibility studies for projects as big as this here are essential. Because you really need to understand what the town's needs are, what the capacity of the town is, and how are the economies of the town. So, and that's all part of the feasibility study. That does not come through a cookie cutter method, so.
Still drives me nuts.
Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mike Stahl, 5 Lombard Road, and also a member of the Public Safety Building Committee. 3 points. Number 1 is just because you're on the committee doesn't mean that you support or don't support a public safety building. I won't share with you my personal opinion on that right at the moment. Number 2 is that we don't have a number yet. That may or may not be achievable through this feasibility study. So, and number 3, the timing of it. So there's the cost and the timing. None of those do we have a good handle on. So now, speaking personally and as a member of the board, a committee, I can't support moving ahead until we have some facts that we get our arms around. Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to just jump in on my own comment. cause I see both sides. I am also retired on a fixed income, but I've been on the board for 11 years, and to Katie's point, which I support totally, I have been, from the time I got on the board, the first committee I was on was a building study, because we've been trying for 11 years to get some kind of a building. First it was a senior center, and that didn't go, then we tried to combine it. My point being, and to everything that everybody is actually mentioning, after 11 years, I would not wanna see this thing just canceled again, because we're seeing things break down, to Peter's point. And my point on this is, if we just can this thing again, then these buildings that have been in need of being retired for at least in the 11 years I've been here, are only gonna get older, and you're gonna be throwing good money after bad, replacing, so that to keep these buildings, money that could be then used towards a new building that we need. The need is not gonna go away. What I see is going to happen, and I won't be around for the next 11 years, but, is it's not gonna get cheaper. It's not gonna get cheaper. So for the argument of we have to wait for the right time, there's never gonna be a right time, other than when all of a sudden your back's up against the wall and the buildings are falling down, theoretically, and you gotta do it. And then you gotta pay the piper, because then it's gonna cost. So I just, in support of what Katie said, and I've always been in support of this, so I'm not about to change my feelings on this now. I would strongly urge that we don't just can this thing. The plan to be looking into it, because the need is not gonna go away.
Heather raised her hand.
Mike?
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Mike Stahl, 5 Lombard Road, and member of the Public Safety Building Committee. I want to clarify the comments, because I think they may have been slightly misconstrued. Number one, I never mentioned the right timing. I just said timing. And timing, to the chair's point, is never going to get better. And also want to clarify, and I'm in support of the chair on this also, is that I never mentioned canking anything. I just said, at this point, we don't have information that I feel comfortable with to press the go button. And I think those are very important comments to understand, that I personally, and a member of the committee, did not say anything about right timing. I just said timing. I completely agree with his comment regarding the best time to do many of these things is always when you missed an opportunity in the past. And I have managed infrastructure for years, major infrastructure complexes, and it's always out of sight, out of mind, and we manage it by controlling the fire at the moment. And that's always more costly than if we took a more managed approach. Well, once again, I don't know we have the right information to press a go button at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Okay.
Heather has her hand raised.
Oh, Heather, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No worries, thank you. I just want to start by saying thank you to Nate for working on the reconfiguration of the ARPA numbers. I know this has been kind of a pain in the butt, and you've gone back and forth on this for the better part of, I think, 6 months at this point. So thank you for putting the time in for that. The second thing I want to say with regards, I totally agree with the underlying consensus here of keeping the $30,000 where it is. And I want to highlight a little bit of what Jeff had said on this. You know, I think it's really important that, you know, even if it's ultimately something we can't do today or next week or next year, I think it's very important that we owe this to the town to figure out what we do with police and fire. We also owe it to our public safety members and our employees to look into, you know, what can we do better? How do we make this a better service? How do we provide a good service to the residents and a safe service to our community? And at the end of the day, if it's something that our residents aren't able to afford, and maybe we're not able to find the grants or the funding or, you know, special earmarks to kind of support the project and move forward, that's okay, but I think it's very important that we at least try. Even though $30,000 isn't a lot of money, it's still enough to get us somewhere. And at this point, if we pull all of the funding from the Public Safety Building Committee, then it kind of tells the committee as well that, you know, we're really not interested in this, and, you know, thanks for trying, but never mind, because we're not gonna give you any funding to actually move this to the next stage and at least try to move forward.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
I never said that I wasn't for it. I just wanna clarify. Okay, did anybody hear that out of my mouth? Okay. Now is not the time. That's all that's all I'm pushing. It's not a good time right now economically to be talking about that. I'm good with tabling it though for now, until the next meeting if you want.
I have no opposition in tabling it until such time as I can come up with a firm quotation from at least one, if not two or three companies that do this kind of work. Like,
You might as well
that's
do a
fine.
feasibility study on a middle school, cause we're gonna need one of them too, so.
So then we will put the motion
Yep.
aside.
You see what I mean? It's
To-
just,
Well,
it's
I
never
I
ending.
respectfully ask that the rest of the,
Oh, except
the rest of the line items, at the very least, at least the Amarillo, because they've
Okay.
respectfully
And they've been waiting.
not really pushed since August.
Okay, if there's no further comments, we'll take a motion.
Alright, so I would like to make a motion to accept,
Open it for you.
yeah, do you want just the Amarillo, or do we wanna do everything but the?
Everything,
Everything and leave the,
everything, everything.
okay, we don't wanna just
No,
table the,
everything.
Whatever, the feasibility?
No, everything.
Alright,
I
I'll make,
thought we were talking about
tabling the feasibility, I thought that's
Well,
what we
just-
just talked about.
just not spending the money and not dedicating
The
it to feasibility.
Okay,
It's
so we
already
can
there, it's
still-
already in
so
the
we can just
feasibility
accept
study,
it
we're
all,
just leaving
and
it
it's
there
fine.
until the
Yeah,
end
we
of the
can always
year,
change our
if we
minds.
decide
We
we
can
need to do
always
something
always-
differently with it before we
I would-
lose it.
I wouldn't, in my own safety, go and spend money
Oh, okay, alright.
on a broken, on a
It's good as
What?
it is.
You're going doing stuff without our knowledge?
No, yeah, run real quick.
Okay, alright, so then I'm going to, make a motion to accept the proposal of reallocation of the remaining ARPA funds.
Motion's made, is there a second?
Second.
And second. Any discussion? Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion passed. Okay, moving on.
I
The
figured you guys did a little bit of trouble.
town,
by the
town
way.
administrator's report.
Mr. Chair, with respect to time, there is almost nothing that I have not at least alluded to this evening, but however, I do request a motion to, on behalf of the select board, write a letter of thank you to Representative Berthium and
Yes.
State Senator Durant.
So moved. Anybody seconding that? I made a motion, people.
Second.
Okay.
Motion made and second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Yes, opposed? Motion passed, okay. All right, we'll, pass on the, TA report then.
Yeah, I'll make a real
Okay.
good one.
Okay.
Under policies, we have one thing, just simply to, I think, explained, as you explained to me earlier today about the citizen of the year.
So, maybe this time last year, maybe a little bit later than this, we had a discussion during a select board meeting about how Hubbardston did not have a formalized way of recognizing individuals in the community that take pride in their civic involvement or do great nonprofit work or have just contributed in a wonderful way to the community. At that time, we had talked about that it was a little too late, so it was a little further in the year, that it was a little too late to do anything for annual town meeting 2023, and that it would be considered if I brought it up this year. So this is that. In the policy, I kept it as painstakingly simple as I really could, and had originally had the applicants become considered in an executive session of the select board. It had, after legal review, it has come to our attention that doing that kind of consideration within the parameters of executive session would not be allowed. So I changed the draft policy, which was sent out to you earlier today, to a subcommittee created by the town administrator, who does not fall within the parameters of the open meeting law, to then come back and make a single suggestion to the select board. I can't speak for every town administrator in the history of in the future of the town, but I can say that at the very least I would bring up the recommendation to each of you ahead of a meeting to ensure that there was no embarrassment or awkwardness of anyone. But that's pretty much all of it. There's really no rush on this if we did want to table it.
Who's the department heads that would be on the subcommittee? Is there?
It's left wide open at this time, like if there was a.
Like office staff or like departments, like as in boards and committees?
It
Or
is
either or?
not outlined, it could
Okay,
be
either
anyone,
or.
if 1 year it wants to, if I say, oh, chief knows a lot of people this year, and so does the chair of the open space, then we name that.
Okay. So it's gonna change from year to year depending on who's, cause if we have a lot of overturned,
Or we
like
could
new
form,
people.
or we could formalize it and make it say the police chief, the town administrator, and the town clerk.
No, I think it's fine being open like that,
Yeah.
because it depends on who the people are, cause some people are gonna be more civic, community minded and know our residents, and some may not. So if you lock it in that tight, it might kinda.
But this is it's a new plan,
Yes.
simply to avoid the awkwardness of in an open meeting,
Discussing
having
people,
us discuss
Yeah.
people.
that's not okay.
So that's
Yeah.
the compromise, which I'm in favor of.
Yes,
So
I am too.
as far as how we set it up, as far as the committee, that still can be ironed out, but I appreciate the fact that he's looking out for us too.
I don't wanna be there for the conversation.
Yeah, no, that's, let's not talk about like that, that'd be horrible.
So you want us to, make a motion to approve it?
Yes,
You would,
accept.
okay, the policy?
Yep, I would like to make a motion to accept the new policy of, it's called what, Citizen of the Year?
Motion made, is there a second?
Second.
And second, any discussion, comments? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Opposed? None, motion passed, okay. Matters not reasonably anticipated by the chair, I don't have any,
I do.
okay?
So, and I don't even know if I wanna open this one up, cause we have had fairly lengthy conversations about it. We received a request from Q Drug
Oh, okay.
for
I know what this would be.
during.
From who now, I'm sorry?
Q Drug is a nonprofit associated with the Quabbin Regional School District that does, like, think DARE. Like, so they go out and they do speeches and they hold events in the name of speaking out against drugs and speaking in favor of recovery. Remember the basketball player that, Chris, anybody here, do you know?
I can't remember his last name.
So there's a basketball player for the Celtics, and his name is Chris, and I can't remember his last name. He's gonna be speaking at an event later this year. He wrote a bestseller book about how drugs took everything away from him, from his basketball to his family, and his efforts to, through sobriety, gain a lot of it back. He will be speaking at their upcoming event. But what they are requesting is during 2 weekends at the end of the month, if they, let me open it real quick. If they can put purple ribbons on things like the town common and Curtis Rec Field.
They have a contest coming out. It's that contest, right?
No, I don't
No?
believe it's a contest. this?
Well, I think it ties in with the contest. Because they're asking, my daughter actually won last year and is entering our house again this year, so my whole yard will be lit up purple again.
Ready?
For the time.
This is exactly it.
Yep.
Dear Select Board members, Purple for Prevention Week is March 4th through 8th, 2024. It is the annual celebration of youth in our communities to remain substance-free. Q-Drug stands for Quabbin Drug Response Unifying Group. It is the desire of Q-Drug to encourage and create a week of awareness throughout the Quabbin area. There will be several activities that the students will participate in. This special week has been part of the district for the last 9 years. We have a committee of people who will be decorating the Quabbin town commons with purple ribbons during the weekends of February 24th and 25th, and removing the ribbons during the weekends of March 9th and 10th. This part is not true. I think we just got a form email. For the last 9 years, you have generously allowed us to decorate. We hope that you will allow us to do it again. Thank you very much for your help. Please note that if you would like us to attend a select board meeting to discuss this, just let us know. Please know that this year is our 10th anniversary. On March 7th, internationally recognized inspirational speaker and former Boston Celtics player Chris Herron will spend the day at the Quabbin Regional Middle High School. In the evening, he will present his dramatic story at 6 p.m. This is a free event and all are welcome. Q-Drug also invites you to celebrate the 10th anniversary on Saturday, March 23rd, 2024, from 5:30 to 9:30 at the Harding Allen Estates, 59 Allen Drive, Barry. Tickets are $50 per person. Sincerely, Kathleen Inman, Q-Drug.
Yeah, so they have their second annual Purple for Prevention contest, which runs from March 1st through the 8th is the judging. So that goes right with their decorating. It's part of to bring awareness.
overall.
Yeah, yes.
I would like to point out to, especially the newer members of the board, et cetera, previous boards before us, et cetera, we've had similar requests from various organizations in various colors that had wanted to, hang things, et cetera. And it was the feeling of all the boards that we would say no, simply because where do you draw the line? If you have another, I'm not suggesting this one here, but I mean, for example, if this one is brought in, then next year something else comes up. So I'm just talking about boards that I've been on, when these items have come up, the feelings has been the same throughout, not to allow it for that very reason, because you're just opening up possibilities that somebody else is gonna come in.
It's the same argument as the flag.
Hmm?
It's the same argument as the flag.
Correct.
Once you allow one, you have to allow them all, just to be equal, so.
So I'm just passing that out, but it's entirely up to you guys, how you feel about it.
Didn't we have this conversation a few meetings ago about?
We have this conversation a
It was
lot.
about the flags, yes, but this is
And
something.
Flags, yeah.
Isn't there a policy?
No, we
on
haven't,
this?
we
There's
never
no
made it a
policy?
policy.
It's not a flag.
They're asking to do ribbons.
So there's a flag policy, but the ribbons are not included in our flag
And
policy.
we've also
Right.
discussed lights.
Lights, yeah, because certain groups have asked
So
us
we
to
need a
light
ribbon
things.
policy and a flag light policy and.
Just
I don't think we
decorating
need a
in
policy,
general.
but the
We just-
overall general feeling of the board, at least in my opinion, has been that due to the kind of where is the line, that the town has not accepted any sort of decoration or support or lighting outside of the parameters of, in support of our town, our country, and the state, and towns.
Well, they can put it wherever they want, but it shouldn't be on town property. They wanna do their school over there all up, go right ahead, but it shouldn't be on town property.
Yeah, I'm one of those, it sucks because it's a good
It's a
thing,
great
but
idea, I
it's
like it,
where
but you allow for
draw
them, you gotta
that
allow
line.
for all the other
Yep,
ribbons.
that's my problem.
That's-
It's the flip side. That's my problem.
And, it's just kinda reversing what we just went through on the flag policy.
Yep.
Should we create a policy or modify the flag policy to include all these other
Good.
potential?
I mean, we could, yeah.
Uh-oh, now Mike's gonna chime in on that. I can feel it coming. Either that or just have a non, non-decorating policy, including lights, ribbons,
Well, we
whatever.
can get through this and then figure that out at a later
Later.
time.
No, good
Yeah.
point. The very
We don't need
least,
to do that tonight.
Nate wants to get our feeling
Yeah.
in general, but for the more formal thing, if we wanna think about policy changes or this or that,
Yeah.
we can certainly
We
bring
can
it up at
modify
another
anytime we want.
meeting, but
Yeah, when we have more time.
on this particular issue, what's the consensus of the board?
I would say no, just due to the fact of that flip side.
Okay, I would say no also.
No.
Alright,
I feel the same.
Okay,
I almost didn't bring it up, because
Yeah.
I,
We got
What
Heather too.
what does Heather feel?
Heather?
Heather feels the same as everybody else, and to reiterate Jeff's point, you know, you do for one, you do for all.
Okay, then, sir, you have your direction to go.
in the future, I'm going to, we can write a policy up, but for now, if another request comes forward, I will not bring it forward to the board.
Mhm.
If a considerable change on the board happens, we will bring it up then.
Okay. Good enough. Okay, public press or questions from anyone or comments? Seeing none, thank you all for being here. And
Nice job.
Thank you very much.
it's been a long, productive night. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I would like to make a motion to adjourn, please.
Second.
Motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right.